forgot to grab the microphone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where y'all are in the world. You know it is JJ on JJ's PC Builds. I think today what we're going to have is a little discussion. We're going to have a discussion on the 7000 series, the X3D. The reason why I want to have the discussion is the fact of that, you know, it seems like that there's a lot going on around about it burning up and everything else. But before we get started, make sure you all subscribe. First time here, make sure you subscribe. Would be much appreciated. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. What I mean by 4,000 watch hours, you watch video from beginning to end. Each video, we got over 200 plus videos, so please do watch them. Would be much appreciated. Helps us grow, and it helps us get monetized here on YouTube. So please do that for us. Would be much appreciated. Okay, this is the talk. The talk about it is that it seems Gamer Nexus. I'll get you the video link and I'll put it in the description below so y'all can see this video. It seems they were testing the 7800 X3D or something like that. They were testing it to see why it was burning onto the motherboard. And turned it out is the SoC was set up way too high and it was causing it to short circuit because it was, you know, the power was operating way too high. So if you're going to get these X3D chips, you're you're best off. And I'm going to state this. In a few videos ago, well, I think in a couple videos that I made, you might want to see which one it is because I kind of forgot which one it is. But I did say this. And I said, at least give the new Gen 5 series, give it time. You know, the DDR5 series, give it time. Give it a year or give it a year and a half before you decide to jump both feet in to, you know, upgrade and go that way. And the reason why is because there's a lot of bugs and a lot of fixes that it has to go through. But at least if it makes it past the first year, then you'll know that you got something solid. It seems that, you know, and I've said this before, you know, when they come out with new generations, always give it time to work itself in. I'm not saying you don't have to buy it. I mean, you can buy it, but you take a risk. You take a risk that it's not going to operate the way you want it to. They don't have the updates and the upgrades that you need to be successful with it. And guess what? You're only operating it at 50%. Unless the company decides to jack it up to over 100+% right out of the box, then, you know, you kind of run into the problem of overheating and, you know, explosions and fires and stuff like that. You never ever want something operating out of the box at 100%. Never. When you get it, you want it to operate at least between 20% and 70%. Okay, you got to keep that margin in mind. I say it between 20 and 70% is because if you take and hype it up, it'll degrade it faster and it'll make it catch fire and everything else. You never want to, if you're an enthusiast, that's one thing. Then you know what to do. But for the everyday consumer trying to operate the new and best thing, it doesn't operate well for them because they don't know what to do to tone down the power. They don't know what to do to tone down, you know, different speeds and calculations and everything else. Like with your memory running XMP or, however you want to run it, DOHCP, I say like this. If you got a decent DDR4 motherboard, either it's Intel or it's AMD. Okay, so far those have been tested and those are proven to be mighty efficient to your needs. So until DDR5, the next series up, gets some traction, which I can tell you it's not gaining that much traction right now, because there are some in the DDR4 series, some processors, believe it or not, there are some processors that will keep neck and neck with some of this new DDR5. So keep that in mind. I mean, what kind of power are you looking for? I mean, as long as it plays your games and it keeps up with the right, let's say your graphics card, a discrete or integrated graphics, as long as it keeps up with the games that you play, that should be good enough. But unless you want something better, something up in the times, no, that's up to you. But do remember, there's a lot in DDR4 that's still out there, that's still affordable, and everything that you need. Me, I'm running DDR4, believe it or not. I'm running integrated graphics, believe it or not. I'm doing YouTube videos. I've done 8 months worth of YouTube videos. It runs low power. I mean, I'm looking at the temperature right now. It's at 105 degrees on the processor, and it says the integrated graphics, the process side, is only running at 86 degrees. And I'm doing this YouTube video right now with OBS. So it's running just as I expected. And, it's holding the frequency between 3000 megahertz on the processor up to 4400 megahertz on the processor. It fluctuates back and forth, but it's still holding projected wise. And I'm very happy that it is. It's very low powered. And, the integrated graphics running at 2300 megahertz, top of the barrel. It's setting the bias at 2300 megahertz. It's setting the bias for the memory at 1600 megahertz. Boom, I'm off to the races. I don't need any extra programs, just the AMD drivers, which, just to let you know, the AMD drivers that I'm using now are the 23.4.3. That's the newest one that just came out. I told you all in the last video that I was going to test it and see what's going on with it. And I'm running it slowly and seeing what's going on. I'm going to run more tests on it. And so far, I don't see a problem with it. That's because I don't really, unless I get a discrete graphics card, I'm not going to engage to the fact of putting AMD Adrenalin in, but just use the drivers from the software for right now. Until I get a discrete graphics card from AMD, then that would be the way I would go and put Adrenalin in. But since I don't have Adrenalin in here, I got the system down to almost bare bone. And it's running right at a low temperature. I can't beat it. It's not to where it's like using a lot of power and everything else. This processor here, the Ryzen 5 5600G, might use between 20 watts up to maybe, last time I checked, was 68 watts. That's it. That's about as far as it rolls. So, as far as heat in the case, no. Because I got 6 fans 6 fans going inside this case. I got 3 fans on the heatsink for the processor. You know, I got one of those, dual six heat pipe heat sinks. I mean, I paid $20 for it, but it's got 3 fans on it. So, and it all goes in one direction. I made sure of that. It's all going one direction, and I have an exhaust fan right behind them, so it pulls all the hot air out. And I got 2 exhaust fans in front of that and above that, so it's pulling all the hot air out from the VRM. So I don't have a VRM issue. I don't have a heating problem, and the case stays right where I need it, and it doesn't go over 100. The only time I hit over 120 degrees is if I'm putting it under full force, and it seems to run it at the max I've ever had this up to was 126 degrees Fahrenheit. Not Celsius, Fahrenheit. So, and it seems to run very well. DDR4, I think, is more seasoned than DDR5. DDR5 is practically new. So, the thing is this. If you're thinking about switching to, AMD and do DDR5, be very choosy on what you get. Okay? Make sure you go and look up and see which ones of the processors are giving a lot of problems and which ones are not. So basically, if you find some that are not giving problems, that are just smooth all the way from A to Z, look at the motherboards. And I always said this, and I'm going to keep saying this. Motherboard controls all. So the motherboard matters. Without the motherboard, you can't control the graphics card, you can't control the processor, you can't control the RAM, you can't control the hard drive, and so on. So without the right motherboard, that's the whole deal right there. Me, I'm still running a B450 motherboard. In time, I'm going to go ahead and purchase a B550. I'm just going to slowly move up, and to give the AM5 series enough time to do the upgrades and do all the cause and fixes, all the bugs and tribulations and everything else. So when they got it seasoned enough after a year or a year and a half, then I'll slide my way up to to the next generation. But until then, I'm going to tell you, like I told everybody else and friends of mine as well, if you go to that next generation, do expect to have lots of problems. I mean, even if you don't have problems in the beginning, down the road you will have some. So that's because of driver software, that's because of biases and everything else. So you got to take all that into consideration. But if you're new to the game and you want to build a PC, start learning your builds on DDR4. Learn how to build a DDR4 computer before you decide to go to DDR5. DDR5 is a lot bigger animal than you could ever expect. There's a lot more to it, and there's a lot of, setting up the BIOS correctly and everything else, unless you get a pre-built that has all that in there, and it's pre-built, preset, and everything else. Then, that's something you don't have to worry about. If you just want a computer that's pre-built and go, then, buy it off the store shelf. Okay? That's the best way to go. If you don't want something off the store shelf and you want to build it yourself, the way prices are right now, I can tell you this, I'm not going to recommend anybody buying DDR5. The reason is for the simple fact is the cost. And thinking of the cost, make sure y'all got your soda and your snacks with you as well. So, as far as the cost, you could be looking for a decent system. in anywhere between $1,200 and $1,600. Now, if you want a low budget PC, then you're looking on the upwards of between $600 and $800 for a low budget. Do remember, graphics cards now ain't low budget, so that's about half of your budget right there, between $400 and $600 for a graphics card. A good graphics card is going to run you between $400 and $600. Now, beginner's graphics card will run you in between $200 and $300. Excuse me. Now, if you want something that does, like they say AAA gaming and stuff like that, like, you're going to need a card that does at least between 12 and 16 gigabytes of VRAM. So you're still looking to pay between $400 and $600. But if you're playing low VRAM games, then 8 gigabytes will be perfect enough, and you can find, believe it or not, RX 6600 for $200, $229. It might be more, it might be less now, you never know. Or is 6650 for $249. Okay, they're 8 gigabyte cards, so to pick your flavor, a lot of people say the 6650 XT, the RX 6650 XT is the best way to go, but they said also too the RX 6600 is still a good gaming card as well. So you got two good gaming cards right there from AMD. So you can go that route, or you want to decide, well, let's say you want to go a different route, then you want to go to NVIDIA's side. Then a lot of people say, well, do the 2080 or something like that. But if you're going to get a 20 series card, for the price, you're best off to go to the 30 series. That's kind of what I would do. Either, a 12 gigabyte 3070 would be suffice, or you can get a 8 gigabyte 3070 for, low VRAM games. 8 gigabytes is still good for that, but for these newer games that take a lot more VRAM, you're still going to need 12 to 16 gigabytes or higher. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to make this a long video. I'm just bringing my 2 cents to where, when it comes to the 7000 series, okay, X3D from AMD is starting to have a little bit of issues. So, and when you buy one, make sure you research it before you buy it, and make sure you find the right motherboard before you buy it. It seems like asus is blaming AMD, AMD's blaming asus, and they're going back and forth right now. So myself, if that's the case, and the X3D chips are burning up with asus, maybe it'd be different to go to MSI or Gigabyte, or try something different and see what you can find. If you want to do the 7000 series X3D, maybe you can come up with the better determination going with a different motherboard. It might be that the motherboard that they have it designed with the beginner's motherboard, I think it's the B650, somewhere the B650E or something like that. If you want to know more, make sure you go to Gamers Nexus and watch that video. And while we're talking about it, let's go ahead and just look it up really quick, so that way we'll see what's going on. So that way we can say what's going on. Okay, now the video is that they have, that I'm going to post in the description below. It's called "We Exploded the AMD Ryzen X 7800 X3D and Melted." I'm gonna post that link to y'all in the description below, so that way y'all can go watch that video, Gamers Nexus did some hardcore testing, so I would tell you all, since they did some hardcore testing, to go watch that video, just to for say. So, if I were you, I would go watch that video. That would give you better insight than what I can give you right here, but at least I can tell you, where to go and check it out and, see what's going on. But anyway, if this is your first time here, make sure you like and subscribe. We're working towards 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. And just to let you know that. But it's great to have y'all here, and definitely welcome all the new subscribers we do have right here on JJ's PC Builds, and welcome to the family. So we're going to go ahead and jump out of here. I just wanted to make this video to y'all real quick so that way y'all can get a good idea of, the pros and cons. And I can tell you the pros, it's not a bad processor, but the cons are it's sort of kind of catching fire a little bit. So make sure you watch what motherboard and you watch what processor you pick for the AM5 series. Now, if you go to Intel, they're not having that problem. So you can go with Intel, you can go to the 12 or 13th gen, maybe a 13700 gen might be good for you as well. So make sure y'all check that out and see what you think about the Intel 13th gen. Check it out. Might be the route to go for now. Might be what you needed all along. So, but until the next time in the next video, this is JJ on JJ's PC Builds. We will see you on the next one.